This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Hi, this is Eric Anderton. Welcome to this episode of Construction Genius. And on today's show, Jeff Hoops, the CEO of Swinerton Builders, is going to be chatting about his approach to construction and how he's been instrumental in growing Swinerton Builders from $1 billion to over $4 billion in revenue over the last 20 years or so. We have a great conversation. It's wide-ranging. We touch on strategic planning. We touch on acquisitions, business development, why construction is such a great industry. And I know there is a general contractor out there today who's going to hear this show and is going to get a key insight into how they can develop their business more successfully and make more money. This is an episode not to be missed. This is an episode to be shared with other people. I really appreciate you listening. I hope you enjoy it. Again, my name is Eric Anderton. Check out this interview here with Jeff Hoops of Swinerton Builders. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eric.
Today, Jeff, what I'd like to focus on is how you were instrumental in growing Swinerton from a $1 billion contractor in the 1990s to a $4 billion contractor today. And, you know, obviously those numbers are large numbers, but what I'd like to focus on and get some insight from you is in terms of your approach to sales as a construction professional. And so why is it that you make that emphasis in terms of the importance of selling to people in your business and as a construction professional?
Well, that's a great question. You think about it, our business is full of engineers. And we have construction management graduates and civil engineers and mechanical engineers, and you go down the list. And it's kind of funny. One of the traits and skills that most engineers are not trained with is that of communications and or selling business. I was fortunate enough when I graduated from engineering school, I spent 2 years working for Guy of Atkinson Company, which was building the Dumbarton Bridge. And I spent a few years building this big bridge and enjoyed that. But then I went back to school and got my master's in business and finance. And that gave me a different perspective than a lot of the engineers and technical people that have worked in the construction industry. And it taught me to think more like a business person and create the communication skills and the ability to go out and sell work.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different on my background with that advanced degree.
So when you are thinking about selling work, what's the number one thing that you focus on when you're developing a new client or a new relationship?
Well, it's my saying is, again, as I started out in this business, is never burn a bridge.
Okay.
Let me explain how that works into the sales side of this thing. Is that as a young person, I wish somebody would have told me this, and it took me a while to figure it out in this business, but you start out as a young person in this business and you start building relationships. You work with architects, engineers, other construction companies, subcontractors. You're working with this whole group of folks, and this is a pretty small industry.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is burn a bridge. And the reason I say that is that in 10 years from now, that person that you're working with, either that engineer or architect, could possibly be your client.
That's interesting. Now, give me an example of that you've seen in your career.
I just met this morning with one of the nation's largest publicly traded REITs. And the head
That's a real estate development?
Real estate investment trust.
Okay.
And one of the head of their design construction is an old friend of mine. I've known him for 30 years.
Interesting.
And so he called me up and he asked me to come over. He had a job he wanted me to look at. And so for 30 years, I've done work for him, building high rises. And I've had that relationship for 30 years. We grab lunch every few months. We have coffee and we do some social things together. And when they get work, they call. It's pretty straightforward, but it's, again, never burn that bridge, always taking care of that client. And he was just a coworker at one time.
That's interesting. So you used to work with him?
Yes.
And did he work at Swinerton?
No, he was with a subcontracting firm to start with.
I see. Okay. So one of the big challenges in construction, obviously, is it's such a complex and difficult trade in many ways. And let's say you have a job that's challenging. From a long-term perspective, how do you manage that client relationship in the midst of a challenging job where there's issues and maybe money is being lost or people aren't satisfied?
And that's not unusual for a business.
Right.
You get these large, technical, complicated jobs, and there's always a bit of a challenge that goes on. But the reality is it comes down to the way you handle it and handle the solution and handle the fix or whatever that issue is. And it's so important to have relationships. So, for example, you have a challenge on a job, I can call up my friend or the client and say, hey, let's sit down and talk about this, and let's come up with a solution that works for everybody. And that's the way you handle these things. If you handle things professionally and you keep them on a professional level and you bring solutions and you work as a partner, it works. At the end of the job, there's always challenges on every job.
Yeah.
Again, it's all how you handle the challenges. It's not necessarily the perfect outcome every time. Let me give you an example. I was with a client the other day, and there's some challenges on some curtain wall on a big tower we're building. And the client said to me, I said, well, when's your move-in date? We had a really great discussion of when you needed to start your tenant improvements, when your tenant's going to show up, when do you need the building turnover, and which floor. So we worked out an entire schedule. And we basically figured out a system to deliver that building to him so he could get his TI done, start his lease, and everything works out for everybody. In another situation, if you don't have those relationships, it just becomes a contest where you're pointing at each other, getting upset, trying to hit you with liquidated damages. But if you have a relationship, you figure out what the real challenge is for the client and find solutions. That's all it was. We have a little bit of overtime. We work this. And we basically give them floor by floor, and they're able to get their tenant on time and start their lease, and everything's good. And that's it's all about how you come up with a solution and work together. You could just say, well, forget you.
Right.
This is the way it is. I'm going to submit a claim or time. That's when you get in trouble. And if you're able to sit down and have relationships and keep the door of communication open, I mean, you'll have a challenge. And then, 6 months later, you'll be building another job with these folks.
Right.
Because then you handle it.
Okay. Now take me back. I know that you worked in Southern California for many years for Swinerton.
Yes.
Take me back to the time that the earthquake hit in 1994.
94.
In Northridge, and your sales approach following the earthquake.
That's a great question. That's so funny. So I remember that earthquake hit. It was crazy because I was actually still laying in bed and it just threw the bed vertical. I've never seen anything like it. And so I got up in the morning. It was about 4:30 or so it hit, and I got dressed and got ready to go to work. And so I got in my car, and I'm backing out, and neighbors all ran up to the car and said, well, you can't go anywhere. The highways are collapsed. And I said, well, I've got clients. I mean, I have to make sure everybody's okay. And so I said, well, if it's bad, I'll just turn around and come back. And so I jumped in my car, and I drove right downtown L.A. There wasn't another car on the highway.
Interesting.
And I showed up at my building, and I said, well, I need to go up to my office. I need to call my clients, make sure they're okay. And they said, well, you can't go up on the 30th floor because the elevators haven't been inspected. So here I am standing downtown, about the only person in downtown, and they won't let me in my building. So I jump in my car and I said, well, I'm going to go to the epicenter and see what happened and see what's going on out there. So I got in my car and I drove out to Warner Park, Northridge, and that area out there, and started driving the streets just to see what was happening. And I saw this, my first client I started working with after that earthquake. I pulled up to the Hilton out there in Warner Center, and their parking elevator, penthouse, all of it fell over in the earthquake, and it was laying on the ground. And I walked up, and it was so cool. It wasn't cool, but it was interesting to look at. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Intriguing.
Right.
So I walk up there, and there's a guy standing there looking at it, and I looked at it to him. I said, wow, that's crazy. I've never seen anything like this. He goes, yeah. He says, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, I manage the buildings, and I can't use the parking structure. I can't get people in. I said, well, you want me to fix it for you? And he goes, yeah, what can you do? I said, well, I'll have crews out here tomorrow, and we'll take down the unsafe pieces and safe it off, and then you can start using the parking structure. And so he said, great. So I called a Penn Hall at the time, demo contractor.
Right.
Met him out there the next morning, and we safed off everything, took everything down. I figured he's going to pay me. We just took care of business, right? And he said, I got insurance, everything's good. So I went and fixed it all. And then that day I went down and saw another Hot Pockets facility where they made these microwave hot pockets, 7-Eleven stuff.
Yeah.
And the walls had fallen off the tilt up, and the whole production facility was down. And so I just stopped and walked in and found the owner and asked him if he wanted us to fix it. And he said, well, sure. And so we started working on that, got him a structural engineer. He had no idea what to do. So I got him a structural engineer, brought in one of my top superintendents from Denver at the time, rebuilt that plant, Harman Kardon, where they make the speakers down there. Same thing. I mean, I went up there and their roof had started to fall in with all their HVAC equipment on top. And we ended up within a couple of days bringing cranes in and pulling the equipment off. And I spent 2 years rebuilding that factory. But we had probably 8 or 10 big clients just out of the first 2 days, just showing up to be there for them.
Okay, so that's the key right there. So there was obviously, the earthquake's a tragic incident.
Yes.
But in the midst of that, you stepped up to provide solutions and to take care of your clients and also to win new opportunities when those opportunities came up.
Absolutely. I mean, people needed help.
Right.
And I said, you know what? I'm a service provider. That's what I do. I am a service provider. And when I see a guy stand there and his roof's ready to cave in because he's got a big HVAC unit on there and he can't figure out how to shore up the walls or get anything done. So I brought out shores to hold the walls up. I brought in helicopters. I brought in cranes. And we basically just started helping these people. I figured that they all have, property insurance. I'm going to get paid one way or the other. And we did really well, made some good money and took care of these folks. I mean, we rebuilt one building for an insurance company in 45 days. We reskinned it.
Wow.
Put the whole thing together for a lease so they could maintain their lease on it.
So you said something interesting there. You view yourself as a service provider. So if you were to define what that service is, how would you define that?
So that's a great question. So service to me is basically I provide a service with the skills to basically build. That's what I do. And I don't care if it's a power plant. I don't care, if it's a water treatment plant. I don't care if it's a high rise. I don't have big egos in building these big monuments. I don't really care.
Right.
I just want to build. That's what I do for my clients. They need something and I want to provide that service.
Okay.
And I build things. And I'm not so driven by these, egos. A lot of people like to build these big, massive, beautiful towers and all that stuff. I really don't care.
Right.
It doesn't matter to me. I'll go build solar power plants out in the middle of Nevada. As long as my client's happy, they're paying us, and my people enjoy it.
So let's talk about that, because one thing that you focused on in your career with Swinerton is this idea of diversification. So if you were to give advice to someone in terms of how to diversify a construction business from a sales perspective, what are some things that you focused on in light of getting that diversified portfolio into Swinerton?
Well, yes, question earlier about growing from $1 billion to $4 billion in revenue, and that kind of ties into that discussion. When we were at $1 billion, we basically were a construction manager.
Okay.
Just straight CM service provider.
Sure.
That's all we did.
Okay.
And to be really honest with you, if you're a straight up general contractor and somebody pays you 3% fee on a job and it takes you 2.7% to run your overhead, there's no money in this business.
No.
And then
there is pain, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain and agony, but there is no money in this business. If you're a straight up GC, I don't know how you make a living.
Interesting.
It is really difficult. So we see so many contractors fail. Marginal bonuses, on and on. And you can see it because the money is very difficult to make money in construction, and a lot of money.
Right.
So the only way I sat down about 5 years ago and put together, 5-6 years ago, when I took over CEO, I put together what we call our 2030 vision.
Okay.
And I sat down there and we had done these 5-year massive strategic plans, right? Every 5 years, then you get done, you put them in the drawer. And then you pull out 5 years
Dusty
later.
binder
Dusty
planning.
binder.
Yeah, that's what I call it. Yeah.
I've got a whole bunch of those. I paid a lot of money for them.
Yeah, you did, huh?
I did.
Six figures to a consultant.
6 figures to a consultant, exactly what it is. So I got this strategic plan done. I put it away. And one day I said, you know what? People don't read it. They don't understand it. So what I did is I put a 1-page 2030 strategic plan together, and I did it as a visual. I showed my people where we're going to be in 2030 as far as the organization, the types of work we're going to be doing, and where we're going to go and a time frame to get there.
Yep.
1 page.
Right on.
I use it every year at the shareholders meeting. 500 people show up.
Right on.
500 of my shareholders show up.
Right on.
Discuss exactly where we're going and how we're going to get there. So what we started doing is diversifying our business. We've been really working on building higher margin type work.
Yes.
And we've got to, because you can't make it as a GC. No one's willing to pay you 6-7% as a GC. They're going to pay you 3%. Right?
That's right.
So we've really diversified into self-perform. I'm running almost 3,000 craft right now.
Okay.
Union and non-union. Union in California, non-union outside.
Right.
We're self-performing all of our own drywall at this point.
Right.
Over 100 million. Self-performing all the concrete we can. We have a demolition company.
Right.
We do self-perform parking structures, doing them all over. Just picked up a really nice project at LAX for $250 million.
Nice
Job.
Nice.
So that's how we begin diversifying this type of work, which creates higher margin work.
What did it take for you to? Was that an insight that just kind of flashed on you that there's no, like you were saying, there's no money, just pushing paper? What was it that got you to that point of, we've got to diversify and we've got to focus more on self-performing?
Well, it's like any other business person. We got to the end of the year about 6 years ago and barely made any money. It was crazy. All that work.
Right.
I mean, these people are brilliant.
Right.
Construction people work so hard.
Right.
Nights and weekends getting the job done. And you look at the bottom line at the end, and the average contractor in America makes 1%. You think about that. So listen, you do $44 billion and you make $40 million with all the employees it takes to do that. It's not a lot of money.
No.
So what you got to do is figure out how you make 3.5%, 4%, 5%.
Right.
Is where we're driving to. Our goal is to make 5%. And that's after overhead. That's a 5% EBITDA.
Okay.
And the average contractor, again, in the United States makes 1%.
Right.
So that's our goal. And what we've done also then is we've started up really different kinds of groups outside of our normal GC role. So we have a renewable energy group that's $1 billion a year company now. And we're doing solar power plants, and we've worked and licensed in 50 states.
Right.
We've done work in Mexico, Canada on that power. We've also begin to build a waste energy group,
right,
where we're working in recycling waste for gases and liquids. We've just purchased a electrical subcontracting company, and then in 2020 we'll go for a mechanical company.
Interesting.
So our goal then basically is control. If we can do our own frames, and basically control the MEP, we'll control over 65% of the job.
Okay, so that's a very conscious, very focused shift in the business with the aim of getting that net profitability up.
Absolutely.
So as you're making that shift and you're getting into these new businesses, one of the ways that you get into the new business is by acquisition. What challenges do you find in integrating those acquisitions into the business, and how do you address those challenges?
So here's my pitch for acquisitions. So I've been involved in the purchase of probably 10 large general contracting companies.
When you say large, what do you mean by that?
Well, back when we bought them, we were probably $800 or $900 million company, and they were 80, 60 million.
So significant.
Significant company.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So out of that 10, one has been successful.
Interesting.
And that's been HMH. Higgins in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And they're first class. The key to this whole thing is they're a first class builder. When they came on board, we didn't change the name for 12 years.
I know. I know that. Yeah.
And because there's value in that name, and the folks were very honored to work for HMH. And finally, the employees came to us and said, we need to change the name to Swinerton Builders because we're all working on Swinerton jobs, and it's just time. And we said, fine. So we met with every client, talked to them all, and they said, well, we're waiting for you to do that. So it's time. But the market told us it was time.
Right.
So the acquisition, though, back to that question, is it's almost impossible to acquire another large company and make it successful. Very, very difficult. You're going to hear all these stats. Every banker wants you to buy another company because they get a piece of it, all these construction investment bankers. and they're going to tell you what great success they have. I'll tell you what, you can challenge them on that anytime, and they can't show you many.
Okay.
Because culturally, it's almost impossible to buy another large company. What's happened, the reason they're selling that company is, first of all, the leadership is leaving more than likely.
Right.
So they have a senior member that's ready to retire and doesn't want to put the energy into it anymore, or the kids have taken it over, which is always a disaster.
Right.
And so it's really a challenge. So the thing we've done versus doing that, we won't buy another large company.
Okay. And when you say, so large is
GC.
anything, GC, oh, large GC.
GC.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And, you start in a general contracting frame because there's different cultures, different things.
Yep. So
the things that we look for if we're going to purchase a contracting company is a specialty.
Right.
It could be like this small electrical company we just bought is because they have a skill set that we don't have.
Right.
And then we're bringing them in basically and just bring them in the fold to do the electrical on our commercial work.
Right.
So we're not buying a whole competing thing with a new brand and all that outside as a GC.
Yeah.
We're bringing specialty people in. For example, our demolition group, we brought the entire company over and just made them immediately all employees of Swinerton.
Right.
And they've been doing a great job, and they're just Swinerton craft employees at this point. They don't care. And their leadership, we've been friends for years.
Okay.
Fishing buddies. We've known each other forever, and they fit right into our culture. But you're not buying this big, so-and-so construction from Salt Lake City that's been there for 35 years. And how do you then embrace that and bring them in the fold and change that? Very difficult. Okay,
so the couple of things I'm hearing is, as a GC looking to grow, you're not purchasing other GCs, but you're looking at subs that fit into where you have needs, and that cultural fit is also very important.
Very important.
How do you focus? How do you determine that cultural fit? What have you done to be successful as far as that's concerned?
So, like I said, on the larger companies, it's hard because you're trying to accumulate lots of people, right?
Right.
In these smaller things, we're trying to bring in specialties, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got demo guys coming in.
Yep.
We've got electrical guys coming in. We've got some waste energy guys coming in.
Yep.
So we're trying to bring in a specialty service we don't have. And what we're doing on most of the time on these type acquisitions on the small company we just purchased is the people coming in actually bought into Swinerton as shareholders.
Interesting.
So they had sold, their company, and so that cash then was applied back into purchase Swinerton stocks.
Interesting. So they had skin in the game then.
Skin in the game.
Interesting.
That's the biggest problem you have, right? If you buy a company and the ownership gets their check, they leave.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Right.
Right. But if you're coming over and you're basically invested in where you're at, it's a whole different mindset than basically being out there on your own. And the ownership's gone, and if you have no skin in the game, it's a whole different program.
So that's interesting. So the three things I'm pulling out here: number one, be careful in who you acquire in terms of making sure they're a fit for the type of work you want to do, and they get you into a market that perhaps you're not in.
Right.
Number two, get that cultural fit going, which is based, from what you were telling me, on the relationships that you've built with people over the years.
Yes.
And then structure the deal so that people have skin in the game on an ongoing basis, so it's not just get paid and then bail out.
Right.
How interesting.
So you think about it. So if I go out and buy another general contractor, what am I getting? I'm getting cheap margin general contracting work.
Right.
So what good's that do me?
Okay.
I can get all the cheap general contracting work I want.
Right.
I want high margin specialty work.
Nice.
And that's the key to making money in this business.
So let me ask you then, as you look at the industry and based on your years of experience in the industry, do you see this as a path that other generals are taking, the one that you're describing, or what do you see in terms of addressing that margin issue?
I'm seeing some of the more proactive, larger GCs beginning to self-perform.
Okay.
So we're seeing a lot of the contractors here doing drywall, doors, frames, hardware, finished carpentry, the carpentry type trades and laborers. They're doing more and more of their own because everybody's starting to realize that. I think some of the smaller outlying contractors haven't figured that out yet. They're still doing their old style of GC work.
Yeah.
But I think you're seeing more and more. I don't know what you call them, but sophisticated contractors trying to create better margins and by self-performing more and more work or providing design build services, whatever they can do to bring that margin in-house versus giving it away. Because you think what the GCs did, right? Yep. They became construction managers.
Yes.
And And they gave all the margin away.
Yes.
There's no margin anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, and the owners are going, why am I hiring you? I might as well just put somebody on my own staff and do it and get my own GC license. Why do I need you?
That's right.
So you have to make yourself valuable and as a GC and then demand higher fees and services. So again, if you can do your own concrete, drywall, mechanical, electrical, control your own destiny, it's a whole different program.
Okay. So let me ask you this. And let's say you're just hiring someone out of, let's see, Cal Poly. They're coming in as an engineer. They're coming in with obviously, a great deal of, they have a degree, they have ambition. And just going back to that sales aspect, when you get to someone new and up and coming in your industry, what are some words of advice that you would give them in terms of building a successful career from that sales angle? Seeing yourself as a salesperson and going out there and building a business. Yeah.
Well, it's like, as we talked about a little bit earlier, most of the people coming in our industry are technical people.
Yeah.
Operations driven people, right? And that's how they see it. Their job is to go build buildings.
Yeah.
Right? Build bridges, build power plants, whatever. That's their job. But what they don't realize, and you think of the people, the top architects or the top people running construction companies, those are the top salespeople.
Oh.
You think about that.
Okay.
Right? You have the big time architects. Well, that top guy is probably the best salesman in the world out there selling these deals.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because you got to sell business to do business.
Okay, there you go.
And I learned sales. I mean, here's how I learned sales. So I was up in Sacramento.
Right.
Working for, on the Hewlett-Packard plant years ago, building 12.
Right on.
And I wanted to stay up that way because I didn't want to come drive back to the city all the time.
Yeah.
Through traffic, right? It was kind of self-serving.
Sure.
So I started getting the local business journal. I started reading it and started reading about different developers doing different deals up there, and I wanted to get involved. So I said, you know what? If I'm going to stay up here, I need to build my own business.
There you go.
So I went out basically, and we were awarded a really nice job in Fairfield from Kaiser. Picked up another job from Kaiser in Sacramento. Picked up another Hewlett-Packard building, and then I started calling on the local developers. I still remember my first call. It was great. I must have been 27, 28 maybe. I called Roger Duke.
Roger Duke.
Duke Development.
Classic.
And he had a big belt buckle, a great guy, funny guy. And he had a big office building downtown he's going to build. And I go, I wanted to build that so bad. So I called, got his assistant, and she set up a lunch meeting with me, and I stopped at his office building. And here I am, this little kid.
Yeah, right.
And Roger's a great big guy, probably in the early 50s then, and kind of doing all the development downtown. And we walked over to a little restaurant, sat down. He looks at me, he says, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm going to build your building."
Right on.
And he goes, "Well, that's good. Let's talk about this."
Right on.
So he was surprised at my age I'd be there, and he asked me why. And I said, because I want to build my own division up here, and I want to have my own business. So it was pretty funny. So we got everything going there, and then everything hit in about 1989.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, everything stopped in 1989, 1990, right?
Right.
I think it was the savings and loan crisis.
Right. Yeah, that was serious. Yeah.
Everything shut. And every job I had over $200 million lined up. They all stopped within 2 weeks.
Okay. And
then I came back to San Francisco.
Wow.
But it was sure fun putting that together.
So that was neat though, because the idea then is it's been well said, think big and have an attitude, so you're a young guy, but you're showing up and you're saying, hey, I want to do your work, and
I can do the business.
Right on.
Exactly what it is. It's kind of interesting. We talk a little bit about, never burning a bridge. And,
yep.
And, and I talked about, always, taking care of the people you work with, because you never know. Seriously, that architect you're working with now could be, make a decision in the future to get your project or not. That's how simple this business is. It's a small, tiny little business. Pretty soon you know everybody, and they know you, and your reputation means everything in this business. If somebody calls up and says, what do you think of Jeff Hoops? They're going to say, he's a pretty good guy.
Right.
And because I'm honorable, I take care of people, right? And that same thing goes to your employees. I have an employee who decided he wanted to go back to school and get his master's in real estate development.
Right on.
And he did, and we helped him pay for his tuition and books and everything. And he went to Haas School of Business.
Right.
And
At
did
Berkeley?
a great job. Yeah, Berkeley.
Yeah, right on.
So he got done, and about 2 months later, he comes to me and says, I'm gonna leave Swinerton. I go, what do you mean? I just got your master's in real estate developments. You got a future here. He goes, he says, I got a chance to run I think, a big development company. And I said, really, that's cool. And I said, you know what, we'll support you, whatever it is. He goes, and I'm going to pay you back the tuition.
Wow.
Give me some time and I'll pay you back for what you spent on me because that's only fair. And I said, that's fine. It's up
Wow.
to you. And so he went off to this development company. And now, as of a year ago, he's the CEO of one of the world's largest development companies. He runs all of North America for him.
Wow.
And he calls us, and we do work for him all over the place. I mean, that's how it's amazing.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Again, he's a young man. He's not. I don't think he's 40 yet, and has a couple kids, and now runs this whole program. And just think about that. We put that effort in. We helped him. He helped us. And now we do his work.
So it's interesting how that perspective on selling is not just an external one, going out and getting more business, but it's also about how you treat the people that even work for you.
Oh, the employees, yeah. Because you think about it, there's turnover in every company. Our turnover is probably, I think we're about 8%, which is pretty low.
8%.
8%.
Yeah.
And industry average probably about 12, 14, that range. We're about 8. I think it has to do with some of our employee ownership, but people leave, and we really truly believe that you need to, treat your employees like family, and we really try that because, again, that's just one example. We got lots of them where people have left.
Right.
They either came back.
Right.
I mean, we have a boomerang thing here that's crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
I bet you half the people that leave call in a year and ask to come home.
Sure.
And so we work our way through that. But a lot of the guys move on, and they become, they're working for all the developers in the community. We have people working at most of the development companies here, and you want them to leave on good terms because you want them calling you back.
That's right.
How this works. We have people now at Facebook and Amazon and all over working for these companies, and if you treated them fairly, treated them with respect, you're going to be the first ones they call when they have opportunities.
That's awesome. So just in summarizing here, the idea of I really appreciate what you were sharing there about, during the earthquake, going out there and getting your business, doing what was necessary to take care of your, the people who had needs, and, not necessarily worrying about all the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, knowing that you would get paid. I love this idea of when you're up in Sacramento and just going out there to Roger and just, having that attitude. That's awesome.
I was scared.
No, I bet you were. See, that's it. See, and that's the thing. A lot of engineers, they're introverted naturally. They're not necessarily, out there, but to do what you're afraid of and to go out there and to really, look to grow your business is huge. And then that idea of taking care of your employees and being fair with them, because you never know where they may go and how that might affect the business development in the future.
Absolutely.
And then again, I really appreciate what you said about the diversity of Swinerton in terms of looking at how a GC can increase their margins and that conscious approach to that one-page plan, that simple approach, but also really focusing in on the importance of culture, the importance of structuring the deal right, and the importance of purchasing the types of companies that will help you to diversify your business. That's awesome. Jeff, I really appreciate you taking the time here. And any last words of advice you would give to a young up and coming construction professional?
Well, first of all, you're in the best business there is. I've been at this now for actually about 40 years with
Nice.
my first employer, and I've never been bored an entire day of my life. It's crazy. Every day's full blast. Get home, eat, and go to bed, and do it again. Right.
Right on.
It just goes. But I would my advice is, again, don't burn bridges. Respect everyone you deal with. Respect the guy, respect the person in the field finishing the concrete.
Right on.
The guys in the field, the laborers, carpenters, all those guys are the ones really making you the money.
That's right.
And so when you go on those job sites, make sure you treat everybody with respect. I don't care who it is.
Right on.
And because you're no important than they are.
That's right. Excellent. Well, I really appreciate your time, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.